So I've had a bit of an epiphany, or what I think is an epiphany. Maybe it's an amazingly retarded thing that I think is brilliant because I just can't see all the holes in it. And perhaps, in fact, I'm certain that many of you have already come to this conclusion yourself. But what I was thinking of is I was looking at the Golden Dawn. Now, what happened with the Golden Dawn is there was a rapper who did the public school rap, rapping, all the public school platitudes rap about tolerance, diversity, and all this stuff, And this rapper was killed. And this killing of this one person by a guy who either was a member of the Golden Dawn or somehow related to the Golden Dawn, this has been used as kind of a Reichstag fire incident, right? This has been used as this one guy killed an Antifa guy, therefore the Golden Dawn is belligerent, right? And this is the casus belli, right? This is our cause for war. And the reason for that, and the reason that the left in Greece needed this. They couldn't just attack Golden Dawn straight. I mean, and this is bullshit, right? This is a complete bullshit reason to crack down on the Golden Dawn. But the reason that they needed this pseudo-logical reason to do it is because they can't come out and say black nationalism good, white nationalism bad, Muslim Brotherhood good, Golden Dawn bad, right? Libyan ethnic identity in Greece good, Greek ethnic identity in Greece bad, right? They can't come out and say that because that is so baldly and obviously hypocritical, and it's so baldly obvious that they're not left-wing in any way. They're just as nationalistic as the Golden Dawn, except that their nation is third worlders, that they're not leftist in any way. What they are is third world nationalists. And they can't come out and say that because that so goes against their stated ethos. But they feel it. They feel that way. And so what they must do is they must, unless they have a reason, they have to let the Golden Dawn exist. But they want to ban the Golden Dawn. They want to attack the Golden Dawn. And so they're looking for any excuse they can find to get at the Golden Dawn. Okay? And so that's what I think is going to happen with any European separatist movement in the United States. It's not going to be opposed outright on principle. Well, some might, but as soon as you break down the mythos, the Americult Kool-Aid, European racial separatism will not be opposed on principle. But what's going to happen is they're going to find some incident, and they're going to look for something, and so this incident, because the country is going to have like 17 million people, someone is going to do something stupid somewhere, okay? So because of that, they'll use that incident as a pseudo-logical justification. It's not really a logical justification, but it is a pseudo-logical justification to do what they feel that they want to do, which is to attack white people. I went down to Orange County, and I saw on a local paper, front cover, it was like a Where's Waldo thing, but it was, where are all the black people? And they were wondering, where are all the black people in Orange County? And in the subset, and the embarrassing fact of the lack of black people in Orange County. Right? And what this is telling me is this is on display what I have always believed, which is the view of the left, broadly, vaguely, generally speaking, is that white people, like collections of white people, white organizations, white groups, is illegitimate. The very existence of large groups of white people is a bad thing. Okay? But very rarely do they come out and say this, because they can't come out and say this. I mean, that's obviously absurd and stupid. But every once in a while, you get them, when they're talking to each other, or you get them talking extemporaneously when they're drunk or something, it'll leak out what they really believe. Brown power good, white power bad. And so that's what all this is. You look, for example, you look at feminists. You look at the hardcore feminists who say, who rail against the way males behave in Sweden, the way males behave in Norway, having conniptions over that. But then you bring up the way women are treated in the Islamic world or in the Hindi world, and they don't care. Right? They don't care about any of them. They care about first world feminists. Of course, they don't really care about first world feminists. What's really going on is that they hate white males. Period. Maybe because their father was a white male. Maybe it's a bunch of women with daddy issues, and that may also have to do with why feminists are disproportionately sluts. Okay, I mean, but whatever. That's why they're this way. I don't know. But the supposed contradiction goes away when you recognize that they simply hate white males. Seems obvious to me. You don't have to twist yourself in knots to try to figure this all out. It's so much simpler. It makes so much more sense. Man, they don't care about the plight of women anywhere. They don't care. If they cared, they would care about things as to why women are becoming less and less happy, while males have been about as happy as they were since 1950. They would be concerned about that. They would think of that as a great failure. Yet feminists believe they are advancing, that they are moving forward. But the plight of women is getting worse. What's going on? Well, what's going on is that their hatred of the white male, well, that is gaining ground, and that's what they like. The third world population is booming, and so proportionately, women worldwide are probably treated worse today than they were in the year 1950. So it's all been reversal after reversal after reversal, given the explosion of third world population. But they don't care. They don't care about any of that. And so this gets into institutional racism, quote unquote, and white privilege. What is institutional racism and white privilege? Well, there are things that are patently, well, first off, I mean, they're completely unfalsifiable, and they're obviously absurd to anyone on the outside who hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid. Okay? I mean, there are racial egalitarians who recognize, I mean, insane, complete race deniers, biology, evolution deniers who recognize that white privilege is a complete bullshit concept. But what white privilege and institutional racism do is they provide the leftist a pseudo-logical way to justify their hatred of white people. It justifies them. For example, what they want to do is they want to give rich black people preferential treatment over poor whites. Rich black people who have had a much easier time went to all the best private schools, all the socioeconomic indicators that are supposed to be really important. I don't think they really are, but they're supposed to be really important, okay, and supposed to really affect you. They want to take that black kid over the white kid who grew up out in the middle of nowhere, didn't learn to read until, way past the typical age, but then, struggled and got through and is just kind of on the cusp of getting into Harvard. Oh, but there's a black kid, so they'll take the black kid. Right? And that's not a logical. I mean, if you're a leftist, you're supposed to be a friend of the little guy, the downtrodden. Well, then you would take the white person in this instant, but they don't. They want to take the rich black, okay? Because the rich black is black, not white. But how do you justify this? How do you justify this? You can't. I mean, there is no justification until white privilege. See, white privilege suddenly allows them to discriminate against poor whites in favor of rich blacks, because they are privileged simply by being white. And that's, the invisible knapsack. I agree, invisible knapsack. I think part of why it's invisible is because it doesn't fucking exist, see? So that's what I think is going on. Now, am I talking about all leftists, or am I talking about a subset of leftists? What really is a leftist? This is kind of vague, and it's kind of a sloppy initial thought here. But I'm going to put shift the onus onto the viewers that I think you know what I'm talking about, and I think you know who I'm talking about. And the more insane that they are, the more they are really caught up in institutional racism and white privilege, and that they really do, the rationalization hamster has gotten so far in them that they explicitly say, yes, we'll take the rich black over the poor white because institutional racism, white privilege. Now, there are some people who you would consider leftists who are not that far gone. Some people who would consider leftists, more moderate types, who say, well, no, you take the poor white. Right? And they are more, these leftists who still have a little bit of an ear in reality. I mean, there's still a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, they're still greatly brainwashed, but they still have something of an ear in reality, right? But to a degree, they are like this. To a degree, they have the feel. They have the feel of hating whites, or hating white separatism, but wanting black separatism. or hating, anyone who is like a proud white male is immoral for being so. Whereas a proud black woman, oh well, that's laudable. Maybe a bit funny and quaint, but is laudable and proud and good for her. And that's what I think it is. So I think this whole thing is, and where do I think it came from? Well, my diagnosis here, and maybe it's different for different people, but my diagnosis here, but the thing is, it's come about. It didn't exist in the 1920s. I mean, there was what is called the left wing in the 1920s, but it was way different than today. It wasn't political correctness. It was focused more on workers' rights and classical Marxism, and in that way, I like it a lot more. And in fact, I'm actually drifting more and more in that way as I read them, without my libertarian goggles, just reading them for what they are. I'm starting to find the old-timey leftists having a lot of good things to say. Anyway, but that was before, all these stories about Jim Crow, the increasing the salience of slavery in the United States, South Africa, right, ending of apartheid in South Africa, and then the exaggeration of apartheid, similar to what's happening with Golden Dawn. You have this one incident, and then suddenly, oh, we need to, that's the excuse to attack Golden Dawn, and then in the future, when Golden Dawn gets banned, the fact that they were banned is going to be used. Why were they banned? Oh, because they were super violent, right? You see how this works? They're not actually super violent, okay? There's a few things happen, and that's a pseudo-logical excuse to then go after Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn gets banned, and then, in the history books it gets written, Golden Dawn was banned because they were violent, right? You see the same thing with the National Party in South Africa, okay? I think the National Party killed like 500 political opponents, whereas the ANC killed about 40,000 or 30,000. Or it was orders of magnitudes greater, right? The ANC killed a lot more of their political opponents, and most of the political opponents that the ANC killed were not white people, were not members of the National Party. They were members of rival black nationalist factions, right? And that I'm going to call the ANC a black nationalist organization, and all these other things that they were fighting against as other black nationalist organizations, right? Because that's what they were. That's obviously what they were. If they were white saying what they said, they would be called, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But that's what happened, right? And so then the ANC took over. Well, why did the ANC take over? Well, because the National Party instituted apartheid, which was brutal oppression of the blacks, right? And so now, of course, the blacks were not, in fact, being brutally repressed. In fact, South Africa, under apartheid, had an immigration problem. They had a problem with too many black immigrants leaving Namibia, leaving Mozambique, coming down into South Africa in order to live under apartheid, under white rule. Right, that was their problem. Right, but since the National Party got taken down, why were they taken down? Oh, well, because they were brutal oppressors. Okay, they weren't, but because they lost, what's the reason for that? They were brutal oppressors, and that's what gets remembered. You see how this victor's history works? Okay. It's happened with the National Party, and it's going to happen with the Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn is going to be remembered as horribly violent when they weren't. Okay. Now, I made a video saying why they would be justified in being so if they were, right? But that's another argument for another time. Right here, I'm talking about just the psychology of the hard leftists. Okay. So I don't want to loop. I don't want to be going around on points over again. That's just something I wanted to say in this video here.